So just to give you a good definition of terms, when we talk about dementia, we are saying that that's the umbrella term for saying that something is changing within that brain. And those brain cells are being damaged by a variety of diseases, including Alzheimer's disease, which is the most prevalent. So when someone says they have dementia, science is now able to educate the consumers to say what disease is causing that dementia. And Clay's going to go back in as we go a little bit further and define that more clearly. But as a practitioner over the last 30 years in healthcare, most of that time has been with older adults. There has not been a time in working in long-term care facilities and hospice in my current position as a clinician with a geriatric clinic where we don't look at the individual with the memory troubles without looking at their family. We know this disease is a long-term chronic disease, and we'll go into more detail as it goes on, but there is not a day that I don't address or meet with families to say, how will this impact you? Or you the person with the dementia that's still working, and how does that impact us? And this is obviously, I'm going to lay the foundation a bit about what that impact is. We alluded to the fact that the baby boomers are growing. And it's not that it's a phenomenon that we are getting a more accurate diagnosis, which we are, but more so that this is a large group of individuals that are entering the work or in the workforce and or care partnering for an individual. So when we look at the baby boomers, some of you, anybody, well, you don't, anybody a baby boomer? Yeah, me too. And most of you looking get the same reaction as, well, you're only the tail end. And I say, but that's okay. If we're the tail end, we're going to be the ones that are going to have the voice for those that have been before us and are retiring at the rate. I thought, oh boy, hold your breath. You thought Y2K was a big deal. 2011 is a big deal because people are retiring or turning 65 at 8,000 individuals per day. So that's an impact that that we see all over in terms of the consumer's right to choose what they would like in terms of healthcare, what they want in their leisure activities, in their work environments. It is quite an impact. So every 1 of 7 of us is an older American. The good news in the geriatric population, because we're living longer, up to 83.6 these days, the middle age has changed. So middle age is really considered 65 to 75. So you all thought you were old. 65 to 75 is middle age, where 75 to 85 is considered older adult. Anything over 85 is old adult in the clinician world of how do we divide the stages of aging. So please understand that most middle-agers are going to probably still consider working longer. And so 20 per, as you can see some of the statistics here. Older women, of course, are going to be outnumbering the men, but that's catching up, isn't it? So a little bit more about the demographics, because we'll see the impact of the employment situation when these individuals, what I call, are duly employed, that they are providing unpaid care to their individuals that they're caring for, plus oftentimes working full time. So they're almost as if they're duly employed, but not a surprise. I think that demographic is changing. There's a wonderful study out by University of San Francisco, and always makes me smile because it's a small study, but it did it with gender. And they polled, who prefers to be a care partner, women or men, and who found the most satisfaction. And they said that men identified themselves as having more satisfaction in the care partner role than women. I thought that, it kind of made me smile, but it also said, wait a minute, why are women always that care partner? Is it a nurturing? Is it innate? Or is it because we've had that role? And is that role changing? And what do we have to, we can't assume that the care partners out there are going to be just women. And that we have to tailor our environments to look at how do we then educate men to providing those types of care. So that's a whole gender discussion there. But when we think about working care partners, we can't exclude the fact that men may also be care partners and may enjoy it. So take a look at that. The average age is 48. 72% of these individuals care for somebody that's older. Is anybody in that situation now? Is that they're caring for older, parents? Got it, good. Lots of head shaking there, absolutely. But look at how see that gap is changing and coming closer. So women are providing 22 hours of care to someone, and men are providing 17. So we're really closing that gap in terms of the responsibilities and shared responsibilities. And they know that if they're working more than 15 hours, which most individuals are, that their work is being affected. Let's talk a little bit more about who else is out there just quickly. These are some recent facts that came up, and I said, let's put those in there. So 1 in 3 are professionals, and 12% of those are managers that are in that dual role of working full-time and caring for someone. 71% report the employer knows about their care partner's responsibilities. So there's still a percentage of folks that don't share that they're in this dual role. And so again, many of them report depression. And depression isn't, I can't get out of bed. It's, I don't have the focus, I don't have the attention, I can't maintain my own level of health, I am stressed, I'm not getting the sleep, I'm irritable. It's not I stay home and cry and can't get out of bed. It's these moods that are certainly present in the work arena. And again, 1 in 4 will report lack of access to employee-sponsored support. We hope that changes. We hope that people see that there is support. And as human resource managers, you are the folks that will get the information to the EAP or make sure that they're aware of this information. So what impact does it actually have day to day? We see these folks, we always say, if you bring your loved one to the clinic or to the Alzheimer's Association for care consultation, we know that if we don't give them support, we're going to have 2 patients or 2 clients that we've got to look at in terms of addressing significant health issues, because the impact is quite great. 69% say that it's stressful. We have to rearrange our work day to get to the doctor appointments, to take care of the healthcare crises that come up frequently in this population. We know that we have to take unpaid leave, which then certainly affects the individual, adds increased stress. 37% just say, I quit. I can't do this. I can't do this 80-hour a week job. And you're going, if I would have known. There would have been some support there. We could have had some flexibility there if I would have known. Single women, the caregivers, they have to work. They have to work just to be able to meet the concrete needs of housing, everyday meals on the table, prescription medications, everything that keeps them healthy, they are struggling with. 6 in 10, they say, boy, maybe as a mom with small children, everybody gets that. And there's some warning, isn't there? There's 9 months of warning that my life is going to change. But what about the folks that are uncomfortable taking the time off because they have an older adult? Well, you don't have to be looking for a baby bump. You'll be looking at the stressors that are certainly related to caring for someone. And they miss an average of 6.6 hours a day. This is the real impact. This is the real impact. And they will say, they suffer from work-related illnesses. I can't keep it going. I'm not sleeping. I'm not doing my nutrition. I'm not taking care of myself. I'm not getting to my own doctor. 70% report that if they're working and also caring for someone, that their health is worse. If they're working full-time, that's no difference. Younger than 45 working, if they're younger and working, keep in mind the average is 48. So most of folks will report that they are having some emotional health issues. They're depressed, they're anxious, they're tired, they're not sleeping. Go ahead. Thank you. So before we move into it, what % of this is related to dementia? And the prevalent dementias are the Alzheimer's disease. And again, their immune system takes its toll. One of the things that when folks come through the office for a care consultation and meet with one of us, we know that when they've come to us, they have that underlying depression, 70% of them. So we assume that they're going to be coming with symptoms of depression. And so when we talk about how are you caring for the person living with dementia, more importantly, how are you caring for yourself as you care for someone with dementia?
Well, let's take a little look about Alzheimer's disease, things that we think HR personnel need to know. Alzheimer's is the 6th leading cause of death in the United States. And if that doesn't surprise you, it surprised me when I first heard it. It has jumped above diabetes. And so we're looking at a disease now that is impacting millions of people. The number of Americans that die each year from Alzheimer's has risen 66% since the year 2000. So this disease is on a trajectory going straight up. It is just a remarkable growth in this disease. Each year, Alzheimer's disease kills more Americans than breast and prostate cancer combined. Now, the reality is we don't always know, because death certificates don't always reflect the cause of death being Alzheimer's. We find out that our numbers are very much skewed. So we believe that these numbers are probably even higher than what we're seeing here. Nebraska, we're looking at about 33,000. We think it's more like 40,000 now living with the disease. And here's the stat that always gets me. 80,000 caregivers. 80,000. If you look at Memorial Stadium on a Saturday, that sea of red is what we're looking at when you combine the caregivers, their care, and the persons with the disease, and they can't build enough more layers on top of that stadium to keep up with it. Okay. We're just looking at this huge impact on the state. We are an aging state, so we're going to see more. North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Iowa, we're kind of in that graying area of the country where we're going to begin to see more people with this disease. It is a fact that African Americans and Latinos are at a much higher risk of this disease. Some of that is lifestyle, some is genetic, but we just know that we need to be reaching out into those communities more to help them understand the signs and symptoms of the disease, how to get resources that they need. And so one of our goals, one of our diversity goals, is to reach into those communities where maybe they're not getting the type of information that they need about this disease. Alzheimer's is the only disease of the top 10 of what we consider to be diseases that are killers without a way to prevent, cure, or even slow. We can't do it now. We got some very smart people working on it. And by the way, Omaha is a center at UNMC for research in this area. So there's hope. But for right now, there's nothing we can do. Death rates from other major diseases are going down. We're doing better with cancer. We're doing better with diabetes. We're doing better with stroke prevention. People are living longer with HIV/AIDS. And many diseases, when we put a smart commitment of money together, we've eradicated them. Alzheimer's is up 68% above all those. So we just see this, again, this real kind of trajectory of this disease. And that's why it's going to affect all of us, and especially in the workplace. It cannot be avoided. They're going to be in our companies. They're going to be in our businesses. And we're going to have to be recognizing that. Women, by the way, a new study came out. Women by the age of 60 are twice as likely to have Alzheimer's than breast cancer. Women also make up 60% of the caregiving population. So women are more impacted by this disease than men. Women live longer, so because that's the greatest risk factor for Alzheimer's is age, they are at more risk of getting the disease, and they are also the majority of caregivers. So women in the workforce are the ones that you're going to probably be seeing saying, I am caring for someone. Okay. I need some help. So what are the causes? There's damage to the brain. It's not a mental illness. So we're seeing the brain kind of shutting down as different parts of the brain are affected, and it's killing brain neurons. So the disease can go anywhere from 8 to 10 years. We think now, though, when a person really starts to show symptoms, the actual beginnings of the disease were probably 15 or so years before that. So it's building up slowly over time. It's kind of insidious that way. So the different types are associated with different areas of the brain that are damaged. We know that depression, long-term depression, can have a very difficult effect on the brain. We also know that people can sometimes be misdiagnosed with Alzheimer's because they have depression, which tends to look a lot like dementia. Medication side effects. People take a lot of medicines nowadays. And how those interact and play with each other can be very, very difficult to manage and can really make a person's behaviors and overall health put in jeopardy. It's amazing how many people are taking too many medications, okay, or the wrong ones, old medications. Use of alcohol, of course. Thyroid problems can be metabolic kind of disorders. And then vitamin deficiencies, especially vitamin B12. We sometimes see people with that. But these are the kind of things that are causing the dementia. It's the brain is being damaged. So what are the warning signs? Now, please, don't go calling your doctors as you run out of here today. Saying, okay, that Clay says I have Alzheimer's disease. Okay. But what you want to remember, and this is very important, and what we want to pass on to our employees and to our is that if you're seeing these signs, get to the doctor. Okay. Early detection is absolutely critical. So one of the things we can do as HR people and employers is say, I'm aware among ourselves, among our employees, to say I'm worried about someone. I'm seeing some symptoms, and I want to make sure we get them the help they need. So you kind of have a good eye on each other in seeing these things. So memory loss that disrupts daily life. We sometimes call it a 5-minute memory. I'm unable to really retain recently learned information. Okay? I can't take in new information, and I'm not holding it. I'm needing more reminders, more Post-it notes. I'm relying more on other people to remind me about things. I begin missing meetings that I normally would attend. One very informative one was a supervisor called a meeting for a bunch of his staff. He didn't show up. And when they asked him, he said, I didn't plan a meeting. Okay. So that's the kind of thing we're seeing. Warnings about that kind of memory problems. And of course, missing appointments, not remembering things that are important. And again, those reminders of those Post-it notes and all that, they really need more help. Planning or solving problems. If you're a person in work that is planning things, you're planning a project, you may be missing pieces of that, or not knowing where you're at in the planning process. Solving problems. If you're a problem solver, you may not be able to anymore be able to kind of get those pieces together and see how they work. So things are just not working, they're falling apart. Familiar task. Completing familiar tasks at home, work, or leisure. These are things that you've always done well, and now you can no longer do them well again. So one woman said, I can't follow a recipe anymore because I keep putting 2 of the same ingredient in because I can't remember. Okay. One very striking one was a gentleman who was in a large corporation. He would take files out of his file cabinet and he would stack them on his desk. And then he asked his assistant, would you please file those back in? The problem was he was able to function fairly well, but he could not remember how to put those files back in the right order. And so these kind of subtle things begin to show up where we say, boy, something's going on with this person. It's not their usual work. Confusion with time or place. This is where they might not be able to understand what day of the week it is or follow a timetable. Okay, getting confused. When is this happening? Okay, when are we going to have this meeting? Where am I supposed to be? Okay. People with dementia can sometimes get very lost in very familiar surroundings. Okay? So not being able to recognize where they're at. Trouble understanding visual images and spatial relationships. This is really a lot about reading, can be having problems reading text and understanding it. It might be problems with technology. How much do we use technology where we have to type and look at things and we're manipulating a lot of things on our desk, okay, to get information? This becomes difficult, okay, getting all those things lined up. Also becomes difficult when you start to see things where, I got my shirt buttoned up today, okay, but even buttoning a shirt is a difficult task if you can't get that sequence right. So you might notice things about just how they're organizing their world. Speaking or writing. Amazingly, some people with dementia and Alzheimer's disease especially can't find the right word. And more important, they have a hard time following a conversation. And so what you will see is in a meeting, they may no longer be able to keep up with the conversation because they're trying to process the words, what that word means, okay? So they're here at this point in the conversation that has now moved on to 3 other things. Imagine how frustrating that is, that they can no longer keep up with that. And so what happens? They're losing what they need to know. And so they might absent themselves from a meeting, or they'll just be asking a lot of questions about what did you just say, or where are we at with this? Okay. When that normally wouldn't have been the case for them. Misplacing things and losing the ability to retrace steps. I get calls all the time. I lost my car keys, I have Alzheimer's. My question is, did you find them? Yes? And when you found them, do you know what they do? Okay, kind of the key. What's important here, though, is this isn't just misplacing something. This is not being able to find out and retrace my steps to find it. So in the workplace, they may be losing things and not being able to find them. So things are getting misplaced, things that are important, and they don't know where they're at. Or things are ending up in very odd places. Okay? They're leaving things or putting things in places that shouldn't be. And that can be quite difficult in the workplace. You imagine that, if something's not put in the right place and things are missing. So not being able to locate things. Poor judgment. What you want to watch for here is changes in the person's overall look. Okay? Are they not looking as well? Not grooming themselves as well? Seemingly kind of not keeping up with their own hygiene. Okay? Poor judgment when it comes to money is huge here. If a person is working in finance or managing budgets or books, this can be a problem because numbers in that sequence becomes difficult. We see it with people managing their checkbooks at home, no longer able to get that checkbook balanced, so someone's having to help them. So really problems with numbers, okay? But judgment. And then making poor decisions, you know, that you'd say, boy, they would normally not make that decision. And so you might question why they would do that. That just doesn't seem like them. If they're withdrawn from work or social activities, we see this a lot in families where someone no longer wants to go over to the neighbors because they can't keep up with the conversation. They don't go play bridge anymore because it's too difficult. So at the workplace, not withdrawing from those activities that might be something they once enjoyed at work, staying away from visiting with other employees, you start to see them withdrawing, basically. And they kind of move away. And it's not like them. Mood and personality. This isn't, you know, I'm kind of feeling down today. This is happy to sad, or sad to happy. Paranoia. I don't know where something's at. Do you have it? Where did it go? Did someone take this? Because they forgot where it's at. So their mood and personality, or they just don't seem themselves. The classic is Grandpa swearing like a sailor and he never swore in his life. Now you have an employee who's doing things that are just not in what we would consider them, who they are, their personality. Okay? We kind of lose them. We used to say that if you saw 3 of these in a person, yourself, get to the doctor. Now we believe if any one of these is affecting your daily life to the point that it's interfering with the things you love to do, go see the doctor. And so that's why we go in and do lunch and learns at corporations and that and talk to people, because we want to get clear that it's okay to go get help. It's okay to say, I'm concerned about someone, so that we can get them into the doctor and begin to think about how we're going to help them out.
One of the things we wanted to do is just to share a little bit of information with you about what to do if you do start to notice employees exhibiting symptoms that look a lot like Alzheimer's. And so the important piece here is to encourage them to see their physician. We always say to people to go and get a diagnosis. We want people to get a good diagnosis. And in some cases, they may not know where to go if they want to see a specialist. We keep a list of specialists in our office. So if you or your EAP department or even that employee needs that information, we're happy to provide that. But that diagnosis is really key because that will tell you what's happening. It might not be Alzheimer's, it might be something else that Clay already mentioned. It could be a thyroid problem or some other kind of condition, but the key is to get to the bottom of it. One of the things that's interesting about all of this is that if an employee has Alzheimer's and they're working, what happens to them typically? What do you think happens? You start to see changes in their performance. The performance starts to go down. And then what happens? The supervisor comes to you and says, I have this employee who's not performing. They've had this steady decline. I keep talking to them. I've given them examples of what to do, and they're just not getting it. Well, in many cases, those employees get fired for poor performance, when in fact it's a medical condition going on. So we want to make sure that you're informed, but also we want to make sure that employees are informed that they need to get a good diagnosis. And so you see listed here different types of individuals who can provide that type of diagnosis, and I'm not going to go through that whole list with you. I think that is self-explanatory, but that's the key, is to make sure they get a diagnosis, and we can help get that information to the right people. Here's what we're hearing. Employees tell us that they need information on caregiving. So they're looking for information on where to put mom, or who can help dad with this condition that they're facing. They're looking at ways to relieve the stress on themselves, because being a caregiver or a care provider, a care partner, and you're working is very stressful. So we want to make sure that information is available and we can provide that to you or whoever needs it. We also hear that these are the topics employees who are caregivers are interested in. They want to keep their loved ones safe. How do I keep dad safe at home? I'm afraid he might wander. 60% of people with Alzheimer's will wander. So it's important that they understand that there are tools and techniques you can use to keep your loved ones safe. And we have many resources at the Alzheimer's Association, and happy to provide that to whoever might need it. We're hearing that employees are asking for more stress management. I'm a caregiver, I'm under all this stress, I have a day job, and then I have to go home and I have a night job where I'm caring for my loved one. We're also hearing that they need time for themselves. Diane alluded to that earlier at the beginning of the presentation. So again, as an employer, as the HR representative, we want you to be aware of what we're hearing, but to also give you some of those tools that will help you respond. Here's some things that we think will be beneficial as an HR professional or even as a supervisor working with an employee. Look at the expectations based on the job performance, but remember, it's not that the person is not committed to their job. If you start to see a decline in performance, it's not that they just don't want to do the job. They've got this medical condition going on. Look at ways to make adjustments in the work that they're doing. Can their work be reassigned? Can their work hours be reassigned or changed to help modify and accommodate that condition? Some companies look at a no-fault absenteeism policy. And then obviously providing elder care support. Many of you already offer resources on elder care, so that is certainly the right thing to do. But what we would like to see employers do is to include specific Alzheimer's information as a resource for that elder care issue that that person might be facing. And just remember, it's not all elder care, because there's a whole younger population affected by this disease. The other piece we want you to be aware of is, if you start to see someone with this disease or they come to you and say, hey, I have this diagnosis, it's important for you as the employer to maintain their dignity and respect. And just as you would with anyone else with a medical condition, you maintain that dignity, you want to keep things confidential, but you want to work with that person and make accommodations as you can. Try to make those work site adjustments, any type of changes you need to make to support them as they go through this process. And at some point, it may be time to exit the organization. And we can help employers with that process as well. We get a lot of calls from vice presidents and CEOs that say, hey, I have an employee facing this problem, or I have a supervisor who's a caregiver and they're dealing with a parent with Alzheimer's. So we get all kinds of calls from employers right now, and we work with them on a one-on-one basis to help work through those issues on how to handle it, what to do, and what we can provide as the Alzheimer's Association. Here are some ways we can help as the Alzheimer's Association. And this is something to keep in mind as you're talking to employees, or you're talking to EAP, or you're talking in your other HR meetings. We can provide care consultations. That's a part of what Diane does. She'll sit down and work with the families. Clay also does that. But we'll work with individuals and look at the whole picture. We look at the family, we look at what's happening, provide resources on how to handle that situation, how to manage it. We have a whole host of safety services available. As I mentioned about the individuals who wander, we can provide you with tools or provide those families with tools that will help manage that situation, because that's a nightmare if your loved one walks away and you get a call saying, Dad's not home, we don't know where he's at, he left the house. So we get a lot of calls like that, actually, where a loved one has walked away. And so we make sure that when people are working with us, that they know about those safety services. We also have a 24-hour helpline so that employees can call us, their families can call anytime, day or night, and they will get someone on the phone who is a specialist who can help them. If they call at 1 o'clock in the morning and they speak Spanish, we can help them. If they call and they speak English, we can help them. We have people that speak a variety of languages that are available 24 hours a day. We also have support groups. We have support groups across the community, across the state, because we service the entire state of Nebraska and a portion of Iowa. We even have some support groups that we're starting to form within corporations, and so that's been really fun to see happen. We have a newsletter that goes out. We provide a host of educational workshops. We have a program called Alzheimer's Workplace Alliance for employers and HR professionals, and Clay and Diane are going to pass out the handouts to you in just a couple of minutes, but we'd like for you to take advantage of that. And that's where we work with your particular company to look at what your employees might need regarding care provider information and resources around helping someone with Alzheimer's and recognizing what those particular warning signs are, so we can work with you one-on-one and come on site, provide educational information. We have a library that's online in our Chicago headquarters that's available to anyone to use. We also have advocacy opportunities. One of the things that's really exciting for us is that we're working on some legislation in Lincoln right now to create a state plan for Alzheimer's in Nebraska. And that bill will be filed by this Friday. So you'll start to hear more about that as that moves forward. But we want Nebraska to be a dementia-capable state. When you look at the country right now, and we have 50 states, there are 5 states that do not have an Alzheimer's state plan. Nebraska is one of them. Iowa has one. We helped Iowa create one several years ago because we partner with Iowa a lot. But we want to make sure Nebraska has a state Alzheimer's plan. So that's going forward, and we're really excited about that. We also provide a dementia care conference. That'll be happening this year in March over at Embassy Suites in La Vista on March 26th and 27th. Anyone is welcome to attend that. And we also have a dementia safety conference that people can attend as well to look at specific issues as it relates to keeping people safe when they have dementia. We have more online tools and information than you can ever imagine, and it's all online on our website. We also do a lot of clinical trials right here in Omaha, Nebraska at the University of Nebraska Medical Center, and so we have information on that. And also we have volunteer opportunities for employees. So if you have employees or employee groups that would like to volunteer, we can certainly provide those as opportunities for those employees, lots of volunteer opportunities.